Hi everyone, Brian from the Technicolor Brian here, taking a look at Pearl by Ty West. Earlier this year, West's movie X made a big impression with horror fans, an impression which was only exacerbated by, attached to the end credits of X, a teaser for this movie, a prequel about the film's villain, Pearl, filmed back-to-back with the first film. And this marketing strategy hit dead center as audiences immediately began asking all of the right questions to generate anticipation for Pearl. Would it continue in the stylistic tradition of X? Would it be as subversive, and how? Seeing as A24 has never gotten into the franchise game before, what does it say that they've put their trust in West to do something like this? I would have been fine if X was a one-and-done deal. It's got a lot going for it already. Whether it's the dual performances, the dark comedy, fun imitations of grindhouse, subversion and commentary about the genre that was, for the most part, unpretentious and accessible, but the direction and writing of the film were both very cohesive given West's vision for the project. There was no need, in my opinion, to take the leftovers of that story and delve deeper into them, but you know, I'll go into this with an open mind. But now that I've seen it, Pearl does not continue the X brand with the same level of care or diligence I saw in the first movie, and instead ends up just a very pretty piece of disposable filler. Now, to be fair, Pearl starts pretty strong with opening titles and an aesthetic that clearly set a tone for itself. Just like X was drawn from 70s grindhouse movies, with Texas Chainsaw Massacre being the obvious one, because that's when the film was set, Pearl does the same thing for late 30s movies and The Wizard of Oz. It's obviously aping the soft Technicolor look and farmland setting so reminiscent of that film, and it was amusing to see the familiar locations from X done with this idyllic style as opposed to how musty and humid they looked before. But after this initial indication Pearl is on the right track, one by one the film's efforts kind of fall flat, and I think these failures come from the film trying and failing to tell us more about Pearl in a meaningful way, which it is the film's clear intent to flesh out Pearl and her backstory. I know this not from just, the title of the freaking film, but the pacing and structure of the movie far more resemble a character study, a drama exploring the mental state of a killer, something like Maniac or to an extent Joker. It's not until very late in the film we see any elements resembling a slasher film at all, or Mia Goth's performance, which is dramatically resonating with people across the board. Giving her the material to do that in the first place is indicative of a grander focus on drama and character depth. Horror prequels particularly seem to love explaining the motives of slasher villains already, but this is such a common trope in non-horror prequels as well. Everything points towards that being the case with this film, so there is no validity to a possible excuse that this wasn't what Pearl is trying to do and shouldn't be the metric by which it's judged. Now, to be 100% clear about the issue here, Mia Goth is absolutely not to blame. In fact, she is carrying Pearl on her back and gives one of the best performances of the year. The control over every part of her face to emote in this is wholly unique to anything I've seen from her so far. She is going way harder in this film than X. Just multiple scenes of her wailing in despair and crying in real time. It's not sounding like audiences are having the same trouble stomaching the rest of the movie that I am, but her performance is well worth the price of admission, even for me. The problem with Pearl is there's not a whole lot of purpose behind the developments made here. The goal is to learn more about her backstory. Why is what happens mostly stuff I already knew from X? And the ambiguity I felt from X merely hinting at these events was more satisfying than actually seeing them unfold in Pearl. In comparison, Pearl is actually kind of one-dimensional. We knew she aspired to become a movie star, and that's like all she has to contribute to a conversation for the first act. We learn more about Pearl's relationship with her parents or feelings of resentful abandonment towards her husband for serving in World War II, and this begs the question of how legitimate West's attempt is to humanize Pearl despite her murderous tendencies. Conceptually, X was pretty cut and dry about her emotional motivations, hitting this balance pretty well already. We kind of understood that her tragic backstory must be horrible, yet she's still a villain and went too far by killing people. Pearl feels like it's trying to rewrite that dynamic where we're supposed to sometimes think what she's doing is justified, but other times think she's just nuts, like before, like we already did. Pearl wants to be a dancer, we know, but the roadmap she envisions getting her there makes no sense, and there's no indication in the film she even knows how to dance. At times the movie hints at self-awareness that Pearl is disillusioned with herself, and her goals of being a movie star are characterized by nothing but her wanting it really badly. Though West seems to go back and forth with how far removed we're supposed to believe she is from ever accomplishing this. Is this inconsistency supposed to be interesting? Because it isn't. It just makes her look stupid. Perhaps this is to add complexity to her character, but that implies a question of what a scene is meant to make us feel, and there never is one. It's always obvious how we should feel at any one time, but whether or not our sympathies should be with her in a given moment seems more random than complex. It's so weird to see Pearl try this, when just earlier this year, not only were we supposed to recoil in disgust at her age, but laugh at her getting launched backwards by the kick of a shotgun due to her age as well. As a writer, West gave us permission to do these things, in the name of schlock, and now Pearl is like trying to undo that. The great irony being X was so confident in her status as a villain, and it still did a better job getting me to sympathize with her than this film did. Compared to what? Pearl giving her a cartoonishly hostile German mother? The script is by no means incoherent or especially terrible, just a little unnecessary, a character study with nothing compelling or interesting said about its central character, especially in conjunction with X. So Pearl is not a complete failure. I don't think its technical or aesthetic ever gets old, and there's plenty of angles and shots which are a lot of fun. While there's significantly less of it in this film, the gore is on the same level as X. When Pearl commits murder in the lush, cheery style of The Wizard of Oz, that's some unmistakably intentional dark comedy, and it really works. As a piece of general horror aesthetic, Pearl is pretty good. So yes, Ty West might be still arranging a competent movie here, but with this setting, with these characters, Pearl is left without anything fresh to say, or any fresh way of seeing it. A lot of what it does as a prequel is either reductive, or just to deliver on a few Easter eggs that X planted first. With that said though, watch this movie just so you can see the final shot. I'm not kidding. It's that good, it's that creepy, and that hilarious. But yeah, I'm thinking like a 5 for this. So hey, did you like this movie more than me? Less than me? And if you care to, please tell me. And as always, if you like not only words, but the way I arrange and then say them, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to me, Brian from the channel Brian. Thank you, and goodbye.